Hey listeners, welcome back to my channel. Let's continue with the next chapter of Till the Last Breath by Durjoy Datta. Chapter 13, Kajal Khurana. Kajal was the third daughter of a rich business family based in Punjab Bagh, New Delhi. Asim Khurana, her father, dealt in converting unsuspecting animals into bags, shoes, clothes, and the like. Getting into fashion and leather designing seemed like obvious career choices for the two elder daughters in the family. Kajal, younger by 10 and 12 years to her sisters, was the spoilt one. By the time she entered college, both her sisters were happily married and, more importantly, incredibly successful businesswomen. The leather factory now had showrooms and boutiques all over the northern region. Money was never an issue. The smallest car she had ever driven was a puny Volkswagen Beetle that cost her father a small fortune. In spite of the abundant money and the cradling comfort, Kajal grew up to be a very sensitive, simple girl with a magical voice and a penchant for reading. She never shopped, never hankered for an iPhone or that awesome little black dress for the party next weekend, and was never comfortable in chauffeur driven cars. Her only loves were music and books, which she indulged in with wholesome passion. No one expected her to choose science after her 10th board examinations, but she did. The bigger surprise came when she cracked the entrance examination and made it to a premier engineering college. Her parents, not really impressed with their daughter getting into a boys' field, wanted her to go to London and study literature. But she was dead set on studying engineering. Her sisters, headstrong and no nonsense, asked her to chase her dreams and make something of herself. They were sure Kajal would bring in the next wave of technology. 3 years later, Kajal was disillusioned and wanted to quit college. Fluid dynamics, Fourier transforms, and the like were not things she was interested in. She was just good at them. Kajal was the apple of her parents' eyes. Her wants were always put first. When she had first mentioned her discontentment after her breakup with Dushyant, her dad had arranged for prospectus of colleges in London where she could study literature or journalism or whatever young girls with coal-lined eyes dressed in kurtas studied abroad. A little part of her had wanted to go, not because it was the calling of her life, which she had conveniently ignored, but because she wanted to run away. Only if she had left for London instead of continuing here, she would have never gone through the turmoil she faced now. The news of Dushyant's illness had shattered her. The severity of his disease had been keeping her awake for days now. Varun hadn't been helpful at all. With his eyes glued to the presentation on his laptop, he had asked her to get over it. Dushyant would have listened to me and not asked me to get over it if the roles were reversed, she thought. Against her good sense, she had gone to see him at the hospital only to get ridiculed and be thrown out. As she made her way back to the auto she had come to the hospital in, she felt her grief first swell her heart and then her eyes. For more than 2 years, she had tried to cut off that part of her life which Dushyant had been a huge chunk of. But the moment she set her eyes on him, her heart called out to her, jolting it out of its slumber. The contours of his face had hardened, the eyes were sunken, the beard was unshaven, but the sincerity in his eyes screamed for attention. The goodness of his heart, which nobody else but she could see, called out to her. It was as if 2 years had meant nothing, just a blip on the time space continuum. Within an instant, she was back to the day he had first talked to her in the library. Since the breakup, she hadn't gone back there. There were a lot of places they have been together and a lot of things they had done together that had lost their charm once they parted ways. The library didn't feel the same. The Golgappas had lost their tang, and the late evening walk in the park felt like a chore. The auto rickshaw drive to Varun's place was shorter than she would have liked. Don't go, a voice inside her screamed as she paid the auto driver and then climbed up the stairs to the lobby of the 50-storied apartment building in Connaught Place where Varun lived alone. His apartment was on the 38th floor, from where one could enjoy a brightly lit view of Delhi at night. She had lost count of the nights she had spent staring aimlessly into space while Varun prepared for his next big meeting. What took you so long? Varun asked as he opened the door. He was still in his office clothes, a finely stripped shirt now hanging over his crisp ironed trousers. Varun was aging faster than normal and looked more like 32. He was aging gracefully, though the grays in his hair were patterned and looked good on him. I stopped by at the hospital. I wanted to see how Dushyant was doing, she said. She searched for any change in the expression on his face. Disappointed, she looked away. Want a drink? He asked. I don't drink. Oh, he said. Yes. Kajal was annoyed. He had known her forever. How could he overlook such details? It wasn't the one thing, though. Time and again, she had chosen to forgive him, blaming it on the age difference, on the difference in the kind of lives they led, and the kind of people they inherently were. They were both born into money, but while Varun had grown up to appreciate the luxuries of life, Kajal still loved her novels, her music, and the dirty spice of street food more. Won't you ask how he was? How things went? She said, trying to incite him, to elicit a reaction of any sort from him. His calm demeanor, his uncaring self, and absolute lack of possessiveness irritated her. Sometimes she wished he would shout at her, scold her, and threaten to leave her. Do something that would make her feel important, loved. Anything that would make her feel more than a useless piece of furniture you turn to when tired. A few months back, she had even posted pictures of her with a guy Varun didn't like on Facebook. Still no response. Just a shrug, and he moved on. How is he? He is alive. He has tumors and a failing liver. Will he live? I think he will, but he is in really bad shape, she said, and added to exaggerate. Though the doctors aren't very hopeful, they are still to figure out many symptoms. I hope he gets well soon. He was always a little screwed up, he said, and sat at a distance. One leg calmly crossed over the other, and he reached for the remote. Want to watch a movie today? Isn't that what we do every day? She asked, now angry. And I just told you someone is dying, and this is your reaction? Let's watch a movie? Do you even care about what I want? Her eyes sized up the guy she had been with for 2 years. He wasn't the same guy she had known when she was younger, the older, wiser guy who could make everything all right with just a few kind words. Their perspectives were different now, and that had more to do with her discontentment than the 7-year age difference between them. I am not having this fight again today, he growled, his voice rising. Why not? It's not that we meet every day. Half the time you are out of town, and when you do have time for me, all you do is get drunk and fuck me, or well, watch a movie. Excuse me? I'm tired of this, Varun. Is this because of that guy you saw in the hospital? His name is Dushyant. Do you remember? Dushyant. I dated him before I dated you. I do remember, he snapped. They were standing right next to each other. Varun towered over Kajal, who was staring right at him. The bastard who hit you and you came crying to me, he shouted, his hands flailing all over the place. Just because he hit me doesn't make you better, Varun. Day after day, I wait for you to come back to Delhi so that we can spend a little time together. And what do? You just call me over. I'm done being your slut. I never said that. But you do treat me like that, Varun, she argued. I wasted so many years on you, understanding you, being with you, when your meetings didn't go well, trying to get what you are going through. And what do I get? The guy I am with still offers me a drink when he knows that I don't drink. I am sorry. No, I am sorry, she said, tears flirting with her eyelashes. She got up and started walking towards the door. You can't go. I need some time, she said, and closed the door of his plush apartment behind her. Deep inside, she knew she was never coming back. By the time she got into an auto to go back to her college, the tears had dried up. But the realization of what life had come to struck with full force. She decided she would go back to the hospital again someday. As the kilometers clocked in between her and the posh building Varun lived in, she wondered how far away they were from each other. She had never been the one for him. His work was his only passion. She was always the mistress. The voices of her sisters rang in her head as she snuggled into bed that night. They hated Dushyant as much as they loved Varun. The news of Dushyant slapping her was hard for them to digest. It's just the start of an abusive relationship, they had said, and she had believed them. That's how it all starts, they had insisted. During the years she had spent with Varun, she had missed the passion, the madness, her torrid relationship with the guy she knew the best, Dushyant, and most of all, she missed the way she was with him. End of chapter 13.